At 8:49 on this Tuesday morning, delighted to be joined by Frances Cryan. She was the first female rower to represent Ireland at the Olympics when she went in the single sculls at the Moscow Games in 1980. Frances, good morning to you. How are you keeping?
Good morning. Very good, thank you.
So, talk to us about the rowing so far. Who's impressed you? Who's the Team Ireland superstar in your eyes so far?
Well, of course, it has to be Sanita. She's just looks very, very strong on the water, and she looks as if she's got everything together for these games. So far, she's dominated all the races through. She looks very smooth, very strong, and we're all rooting for her. And as with all the other members of the Irish team, so I'm hoping that her semi-finals will go to plan. The other girls then in the doubles and in the fours, Zanita is a great role model for them all. And as she said, and I've heard during commentaries, that there's a great team effort with all the ladies and with all the men on the Team Ireland. So I suppose that's given them all a spur on. I was very disappointed for the two lads, Ronan and Philip. I mean, they have put so much into it, but hopefully they'll get over this and move on,
It seems like a very hard way to go out. It seemed that they couldn't really put their finger on what was going wrong or how to get synchronised properly. To put it bluntly, I mean, you'll know a hell of a lot more about this than I do, but can that just happen sometimes? Like, in a way, Sanita just has to worry about herself, but Philip and Ronan were sort of saying that they just weren't in sync properly when they got into the water in Tokyo.
Yeah, it is very difficult, and I suppose it's been a very difficult build-up with the games cancelled last year, and then with this COVID and training. You have to. It's miles and miles and miles on the water to gel together, and whether they've had that preparation this year, I'm not sure. I know they have had camps and great training down in the base in Cork, but I suppose the games were on, the games were off. It's hard. I know it was hard for everybody, but it affects everybody differently. But they have many years ahead of them. I know they probably won't want to hear that now, because it's a 4-year cycle and it's a huge commitment. And it's different when you're kind of living at two different ends of the country to try and train and gel and do everything together.
What?
But, it's a great part. The rowing are so strong this year that it's fantastic. Imagine 6 crews in semi-finals for rowing. I mean, that's never happened before. So it just shows you how strong the sport is at the present. So it's brilliant. It's absolutely great for rowing.
Yeah.
They're up there, one of the top sports at the minute.
Absolutely. Can I just ask you on Sanita then? What are you seeing differently from Sanita at this Games compared to her previous Olympic outings? Because, I don't know, the Olympic flag sometimes has spelt the worst for her personally. Her performances maybe wouldn't be up to her own standard, but it seems that she's motoring well so far this summer.
Well, she's very, very, very fit looking. Extremely strong looking. I suppose that that would be years and years of just training, and mileage. You can see she's very sinewy, and I just thought she was very strong, very great leg drive. Her whole stroke is very powerful. She looks very comfortable. She makes it look easy, but yet if you look at her strokes, I mean, she's driving through with the legs. She's just she's a very, very compact stroke. She's getting very efficient in the water. So I really hope this is her year. I mean, she's put so much on the line for us, and she's sacrificed so much, I'm sure, for since 2012. So I'd say it's do or die this year for her.
Frances, I'm just curious as well. Like, we had Niall O'Toole on Off the Ball last week, and he was talking about Paul O'Donovan being, at 26 years of age, he's a world beater, and certainly one of the most talented rowers out there. A peak age for rowers, like for someone who doesn't follow the sport as closely as yourself. Paul O'Donovan being 26 years of age, but then you see Sanita at 39 doing incredible things as well. Like, is the type of sport that if you condition yourself right, you can go on for longer, or is what Sanita's doing at 39 a little bit out of the ordinary?
I would say I would say definitely it's a little bit out of the ordinary. Now, you know, I've been looking at different age profiles of different rowers, probably in the single sculls, mentally and physically, probably mid-30s, you would be at your best. If you know, there's not too many people will put the commitment and the training in for those years, because it takes huge dedication, huge sacrifices, like for everybody even around you. So it's very hard to commit to that level for that length. So that's why she's so unique, and that's why I'm wishing her so much success. Paul has years ahead of him. Now, lightweight rowing is very, very competitive, because there's all sports are competitive, but lightweight, I mean, it's just across the board. It's who's the fittest on the day, who, you know, because you're weighing in, there's an awful lot of different angles to it, your diet, everything. But I think around 35, 36 is, mentally you would be very mature, you would have great racing. For the body and the mind would be at its peak. But again, there's not too many people can commit to that.
Absolutely, that's for sure. And like when I look ahead to tomorrow's final with the women's four, like Afra Keogh, Emer Lamb, Fiona Murtagh and Emily Hegarty, really, really exciting, because they were only 0.2 of a second off Australia, the favourites for this in their semi-final. Like, can you read much into the timings? Like, it's different, I guess. The swimming, you can read a lot into the timings because the conditions are the same for all the athletes. But especially in that Tokyo Bay, where the waters can get a little bit choppy, and with this typhoon there at the moment, certainly it's a bit choppier around Tokyo. But is rowing a sport where you kind of have to, I guess, take timings with a pinch of salt?
I think so. Again, as you said, it depends on conditions. It depends on crosswinds, headwinds, tailwinds. Some people can cope better with rougher waters. It depends on where you have trained. Others then excel on calm water. But normally at that level, I mean, when they get to Olympic level, they have a good what word would I use? They'd have a good base where they have raced in all conditions over years and trained. So it's down to who wants it the most. And I suppose in a four, you have four girls. But it's the team spirit too. It's the people around them. It's the way they'll go out. It's do or die at this stage now. But the competition is, everybody is the racing will be fantastic, I'd say, in the finals. Especially for Sanita's race. I mean, you have you have that young Russian girl, you have the New Zealand Emma Twigg, you know, you have some great scullers there. And some of them peak at Olympics. So you could get a few surprise results.
For sure. It's going to be a great few days tomorrow morning. Hopefully, if this storm doesn't come in too badly, everything will go to plan. 12:20 tonight Irish time is when the Irish interest gets underway. Just a couple of the key times. 10-2 is when those fours rowing final with the women takes place, and then you've got obviously Paul O'Donovan and Fintan McCarthy at 3:30, and then you've got Aoife Casey and Margaret Cremen at 3:40. So they're just a couple of the moments to keep an eye out for early tomorrow morning, and then as the day goes on, there'll be more Irish rowers in action. I did, Francis, just want to ask you about 1980 briefly before we let you go. The Moscow Games, when you represented Ireland, the Leitrim Observer and the readers of the Leitrim Observer voted it as Leitrim's greatest ever sporting moment, beating the 1994 Connacht football final. I presume it's viewed by you with great fondness at this point, and when you think back to 1980, it's a phenomenal memory.
Well, it is. It was great to get there. I suppose it's many years ago now. God, it's unbelievable. Time goes so quick. We had a great time in Moscow. I mean, weather was just like what we've had here in Ireland the last week, really hot. There was a great team spirit, and the Russians looked after us very well. The facilities over there were wonderful. You know, yeah, I have great memories from it.
How much was that period all down to yourself and to the people in and around Leitrim at that point, rather than, I guess, the high performance unit that is producing so many top class rowers at this point? Were you almost an exception to the rule at that point, Francis, in terms of qualifying and performing so well at an Olympic Games?
Oh God. Well, I got wonderful support from people at Leitrim. I mean, I had 2 boats at the time. One was left in Europe so that I could race. I wouldn't have to be waiting for my boat to be transported. And both boats were called Leitrim 1 and Leitrim 2 because they had been bought by the Leitrim people through fundraising. And I had a wonderful team in the area who would have trained me doing weights, especially Ed Nangle, who was my full-time coach all the time, and he would have planned and plotted everything. So yeah, I got wonderful support. You know, there was a national squad, but because we were based in Leitrim, we would have been outside it. And women's rowing wasn't as strong back then as it would be today. So it's wonderful to see, you know, what's happening now in rowing.
Can I just ask you, Francis, as well? Sorry, fire ahead, Francis.
No, when you see like Paul O'Donovan, Gary O'Donovan, Finton, Sanita, and all the other young girls, you know, Aileen, Dominique, Aoife, Margaret, the whole lot of them, the 4 girls as well. It's wonderful to see them up there at Olympic level and racing at World Cups all the last couple of years.
Like I really enjoyed, as per usual, Paul O'Donovan's post-row interview. He always has something decent to say, and he told the people to go to sleep that were thinking of staying up to watch him in his rowing. He also spoke, though, Francis, about you know, their training camp in Italy and how they kind of trained for the humidity in Tokyo by you know, having heaters in their bathroom and kind of rowing and doing little bits of aerobics in their bathrooms. Like, I'm sure even back in your day as well, for the 80 games in Moscow, there must have been some strange training practices and training methods in rowing to I guess prepare your body for the conditions you're going to face at an Olympic Games.
Not really, no. We didn't have any we didn't think out of the box like he is. No, we just kind of acclimatized as much as we could when we got there. And you hope for the best and you said a prayer. No, it was different times. I mean, like we did go to like I went to Germany to a Ruder Academy. I went to America to train. We did different things like that. And we got different coaches over, like Mike Sprattling came over. I went over at one stage to England and trained with Steve Redgrave for maybe a weekend. So we were trying different things. But for conditions like, no, we had no heater. Well, we had plenty of heaters, but we didn't think of using them in the bathroom.
It's interesting, Francis, because you were speaking there a moment ago about how a peak of a rower's career is in their mid-30s. I think you were in your early 20s for Moscow. So did you come close to qualifying for Los Angeles 4 years later, or what happened in between?
Oh, politics in the sport, unfortunately. And it was really a men's sport. The rowing wasn't very strong that year. So I think I was about the only one would have I don't think the rowing union were too wanted that, because I was measured for the uniform. I was ready to go 6 weeks beforehand. I just got word that I wasn't travelling, that I couldn't guarantee I'd be in the top 6. So their standards were very high back then.
Right. So sorry, they wouldn't.
That was more or less it.
Right. They wouldn't let you travel unless you could basically guarantee a medal standard of a performance.
Well, they said I had got reached 7th in Moscow, so they wanted nearly to guarantee that I'd be in the top 6, and that's impossible to do. But I was looking like I was 7th, 8th still. So I suppose after spending 4 years training for the Los Angeles Olympics, it was very hard to go back. I went back for 2 years more towards the Seoul ones, but I packed it in then in 86. I suppose I just felt that the writing was on the wall, that unless I nearly could guarantee a medal back then, I suppose I wasn't part of the Dublin scene, and that wouldn't have helped.
Can I just ask Frances?
I enjoyed it as much as as long as I did it, and I've no regrets.
Absolutely. Well, that's the main thing for sure. We spoke about Philip Doyle and Ronan Byrne's disappointment, and certainly it's been a nightmare Olympics for them. I saw one piece of analysis out of their performance talking about the fact that they had 3 races in 3 days in searing heat, which was always going to prove problematic. Like, is that an issue as well, that for some rowers maybe the schedules can kind of work against them, especially if the weather is that hot or if the water is choppy, and especially if you have races in consecutive days, that can make it quite difficult for a rower, because your recovery time is crucial, I'd imagine, Frances.
Oh, that would be huge, because when you think of it, you're 7 minutes, at max output of the body. I mean, it's crazy stuff, really. I mean, to expect the body to recover again. I know you have been training for that, and that's why, like when I was rowing, we would be doing 5-6 hours a day, every day of the week, all year, maybe bar 3 weeks in September. So when so you're training to get that stamina into the body, and but yet when you race 3 days, one after the other, it's draining, very, very draining. So again, it will be down to your fitness level. But those guys shouldn't be disappointed. I mean, they're young, and this will stand to them. I mean, we've all had huge disappointments, but it makes you stronger. You learn from from results like that, and they'll go on and they'll really, really be better athletes as a result of this. I know it's hard to take it now, but they're still in a B final. So there's nothing, it's brilliant.
Absolutely.
It's just that their expectations was probably for a medal. Yeah. Normally Irish athletes would love to be in the top 10, and there'll be a lot of them mightn't make it for different reasons.
Yeah, it's amazing how the standard has completely changed, and how the base expectation of a team in the Olympic Games for Ireland has completely shifted, where medals are kind of the only currency that counts in that team. It's brilliant to see. Frances, it's been great hearing from you today. I know that Cliona Foley did a brilliant piece with you on our Off the Bench podcast a couple of years ago, and that's absolutely worth digging out. And it's been great to chat to you again this morning, Frances. So thanks a million for taking the call.
Not at all, thank you. And I'm wishing all the athletes, but especially the rowers, the very best of luck. We'd be rooting for them. Thank you so much.